Hello, everybody. That's not the intro there. It's fine. But welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Echoes. I am 3 Bits, and we're gonna have a really good show today. We got some good topics to get through. Let me just pull up something up here. But we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. So PS5 Pro, Indiana Jones, and some other things coming up the board. I will always start the show with what we've been playing and what we've essentially have been up to. But good to see some people already diving into the chat. See, Solid White was basically talking about Call of Duty getting the double XP. I actually just bought some boxes, some pizza boxes. I want to see and try and scan some of those to get that extra XP. I haven't played a lot of the multiplayer yet, but I did beat the campaign over the weekend. That's something I completely forgot
Nice.
about. So yeah, I beat the campaign. Very fun. Overall, I really enjoyed it. It last Call of Duty campaign I've played was Black Ops 2
Mhm.
on the Xbox 360. So I haven't played a Call of Duty game in a long time, but since it popped up in Game Pass, I was like, why not? And then I got soaked in, and then hours later, I was like, dang, I guess I'm done. So it really surprised me. Other than that, I've been playing the game Overcooked. Had a
Oh,
Halloween party with some friends, and that game is like Monopoly, man. And what I mean by that is, it's the game that can ruin friendships. Like, it's really good, but it's one of the things like make sure you cut the patties and get on that grill fast.
yeah.
That's really fun. So if you and your friends, your bond is strong, I recommend that game for sure. But it's like really good. Like you can get into a rhythm of like what you're doing. That's when it's really fun. Like you're like, okay, I know I'm gonna put this burger on this patty, set up the plate already, and this is cooking. Okay, cool, that's cooking. Let me go to this section and cut up some lettuce, and yeah, um, it gets like really fast.
Yeah.
So I enjoy games like that where you can get into a rhythm where you're just kind of you enter like Neo, you become the one. And you're like, yes, I understand. Matrix. Super fun, super fun. So before we get into any of our topics,
Nice.
let's jump into some of the introductions with my co-host. We got my co-host for the evening, the racing legend, the actual Felix the Cat, the Fuzzy Belvedere. How you doing today, brother? And what have you been up to and playing? What you been doing?
Oh, it's just awesome to be here with you talking about games and stuff. But I've been playing Prey. I'm on this
Ooh.
sci-fi kick, bounced around between Starfield with the Shattered Space DLC, and then for some reason I wound up hopping into Outer Worlds. I just there's something about sci-fi right now. I went from zombies to sci-fi. But with the Halloween season, I figured, well, I need to go with something a little spookier because I mean, Shattered Space has its jump scare moments, but nothing like Prey. So I figured, well, let me take a look at it. Apparently, even though it's you buy it on Xbox, you own it on PC as well. The only drawback being that I guess the achievements aren't synced up. So
Oh,
I
really?
was like,
Hmm.
oh, well, let me just go ahead and start a new playthrough on PC and having a lot more fun with it. Just trying different things. Like before, I was pretty much shooting duplicates of everything I saw, so wasting a lot of ammo. And playing it a lot more scared the first time I played. Now it's like, okay, I kind of got an idea of what to expect. It's like I cleared this area before, but I'm coming back to it. So they're going to have something tougher than what I cleared before. Oh, there's a duplicate speaker. I start shooting that, and it's like, okay, there, it's not a mimic or whatever. So
Hmm.
after I thought I was a little bit more comfortable with things and got tired of shooting everything duplicate when they weren't transforming, sometimes they would, but like more times than not, they weren't. I decided, all right, I'm gonna check out this like crew quarters area, turn around in a corner, didn't even see the other speaker. The other speaker was like hidden behind the first one. And I go to look at it and it's like shaking. I was like, oh, and it jumped out at me, and I sliced it with the laser beam thing that I found, but had fun with that. And then immediately right after that, there were two trash cans. Neither one of them were mimics though, but if they were real trash cans, they would have been evaporated with the laser afterwards. But just having a lot of fun with that, and also playing a little bit of Forza Horizon. Got to collect my
Mm,
cars, new cars each week and stuff like that. And we got a new monthly season starting next Thursday. So for everybody looking to hop back in, collect some cars, they have a ticket system now where you get to vote on the pair of cars that will be acquirable through that ticket system, and you only have to get a handful of points or just buy the tickets not with real money but with in-game like reward points to get the tickets from like the festival store, and then you
mm.
can get those cars that you may have missed in previous seasons and things like that. So they got that. That's pretty cool. And then still on my zombie kick part-time, but not as much. Only because I'm trying to think of like a list of things I'd like to see in like State of Decay 3, but still having fun with State of Decay 2. Um, but really looking forward to State of Decay 3. And there's one type of base that I really want them to have that I don't I've played on each map. I don't think I've found a base like this yet. I want to find like a prepper house where it just looks like a normal house, but you don't do anything upstairs, but it's like a full-on basement bunker kind of deal where you got your food storage, maybe your built-in home gym and stuff like that, and then whatever else you want to have. And it's already got like water and electric where it can collect rainwater, or it has like a built-in generator or a solar or something like that.
Mm, yeah.
That's something that they need to incorporate in like one of the bases for State of Decay 3. That and a mansion. Just because like there's going to be some people with a panic room in a mansion, which could be kind of like a prepper house as well with a fully stocked basement and whatnot. And you figure they have some sort of security system or walls or barrier around the property. So that'd be another cool spot for them to have, which I have I've like I said, I've played all the maps, but I have yet to find that type of base yet. So I hope they put those types of bases in 3. So
Heck
fingers
yeah.
crossed.
For Prey, it's been a long time since I've played Prey,
Yeah.
but I remember being like stuck on a lot of different parts because basically when it starts opening up, so you have like that first section
Mhm.
where things aren't what they seem to be, essentially super cool.
Yeah.
That I remember they did a whole documentary actually, if people want to go check it out, about that very first section and how they built that out.
Yeah.
Super cool. I can't remember what the documentary name is, but just type in like Prey documentary. It's
Mhm.
very very interesting. um oh, and I forgot to kind of explain. So yeah, we're back after a week break, right?
Mhm.
Honestly, I just had a lot of work stuff come up, but Fuzzy's been around the podcasting scene. He had some horror episodes, so definitely check those out. I was actually gonna watch some of those today.
Mhm.
But it's good to be back over the
Oh yeah.
weekend. I've been animating. I could say what I did, but I can't say who the client is for. But I've been animating the screens for the Bucks basketball team for a certain client. So I'm excited when they reveal that. I'm pretty sure tomorrow. So if you're
Nice.
in Milwaukee for some reason and you want to go see the Bucks basketball game and you see some cool screens, just know that it was strenuous but fun, fun process. So that honestly, that's what I've been up to last week. So it feels good to be talking about games with you guys and everybody popping on in. So, but before we get into like our first topic, let's see what you guys are kind of talking about. Um, Google Poll says PS5 Pro so powerful, I'm jealous. Xbox dude, oh my gosh, it's so great, like ponies. Sadness. Yeah, yeah. Well, we will get into that. That's literally our first topic. Um, RJ the True Fly says, "Have you played Black Ops PS6 on the PS5 Pro? I heard the SSD and the PSSR is too fast to run the game and much better than a 4090." Oh, is that what you heard? Oh, I didn't hear that part. I heard some other things, which we'll get into. But must have missed that part. So you know what, Fuzzy, let's get right into it, man.
Hmm.
So let's get into the PS5 Pro specs. Let me actually put up the screen so you guys can have some cool stuff to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, PS5 Pro specs. Let me actually pull up the thing too, so you guys can see some comparisons. Um,
Now there were a lot of
Here we go.
people claiming that it was like 33 teraflops, but that's like on that half float thing,
Yeah.
which considering that this isn't full RDNA 2, that shouldn't really be a measure. So it actually winds up being around 16 teraflops, give or take, which, yes, I know that's more than what the Series X has, but it's not like the uh, mountainous gap that some people had originally claimed and stated that this is RDNA 3 and RDNA 4. And it's like, I'm
I
not the
mean,
biggest tech
people
guy.
set that up with the PS5. To be fair, they're like,
Right.
"This." I mean, before it launched, they're like, "Yeah, it's gonna be RDNA 3." Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
Which that's the funniest thing. Like, you don't even have to be a techie. Just understand when someone claims that it has RDNA 3, or at least even going back to the PS5 before launch, before Xbox has full RDNA 2. So think about that as like a car. You have this 2024 car, right? And it's about to be 2020. Well, in a lot of cases, the 2025s have been on lots probably since August and stuff. But like, that's like having a 2025 car in front of you, and then somebody claiming, oh no, the competition, they're going to release the 2028 next week. That's how much sense it makes. You're not going to have a 2028 come out before a 2026 or a 2027. Well, you might have it depending on brands. You might have a 2028 come out before 2027, but you're not going to have a 2028 come out in 2025. Like, that's how foolish some of these people sound.
Yeah,
Um, and when I heard that, and the one guy, I'm not even going to mention his name, that
I
said
probably
that
will,
back in the
but go
day,
ahead.
it's like all that credibility of anything goes out the window. Like, if you can't understand the concept of how, if the actual manufacturer for those terms hasn't fully released RDNA 2, how could something have RDNA 3? Especially something that was started in production or in R&D before the Xbox. It's known that the PS5 was started before the Xbox. So you can't have the next greatest thing when the thing that the Xbox is getting is at the cutting edge of that minute. RDNA 3 would technically be like testing stuff. And come to find out, people that I guess don't understand tech don't understand that RDNA 3 means nothing other than efficiency. It's no better count or graphical
People
anything.
say
It's
like
more of
two
like,
is better than three. Yeah,
yeah, it just basically means it consumes less power, smaller overall chipset as far as the size of the die. But outside of that, it's all about efficiency. It's basically a what most people would consider almost like a mid-gen refresh of RDNA 2. So it doesn't really uplift anything other than you're getting the same performance using a smaller chip and less power. That's it.
yeah.
And those that said this RDNA 4, when RDNA 4 isn't fully out yet, it's like, yeah, I get it. A lot of these consoles do custom APUs or like basically a CPU and GPU combined. But if they're not fully releasing RDNA 4 yet, I would say that the custom stuff these consoles build isn't going to be that unless they specifically request that, like Xbox did for RDNA 2. Um, Other times where if they're not going for that full, chipset setup for what the PCs will have incorporated in their, uh, you know, AMD branded video cards out there, then, they were going to have to make it up some other way as far as hardware, which the machine learning aspect, which I remember hearing people talk about how the series consoles has it and that this has a dedicated chip for that as well. And it's like, it doesn't matter until developers actually, you know, put it to use kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, you could get the manufacturers to do something as far as kind of like what FSR is, which the custom stuff that the PS5 Pro have is might be along the same lines as FSR 4, but it's their own proprietary kind of thing, which there's going to be more PC video cards using FSR 4, especially with it being an open source kind of thing,
Yeah.
then there will be pisser related stuff. So, with that being said, think that most devs are going to focus on FSR 4 over pisser, but
Yeah.
I
It's
could be
it's like
wrong.
the SSD problem. Like they put so much power into the SSD, right? Like someone in our chat
Mhm.
was joking about the SSD. And Mark Cerny was boasting about it in his tech talk, like, look how much like space we have with the SSD. And I'm like,
Mhm.
a lot of your developers aren't going to use that because if they do, they can only realistically put that game on the PS5.
Yeah.
And no one, you can't PC, other consoles, it becomes like a problem essentially
Mhm.
in the development process. So what do? You just basically just ignore that benchmark, and then you just kind of just go for what you think should be in there. And yeah, you should, certain things in the PS5 may be beneficial, but
Mhm.
like that's not one of them. So to me, that was always like a huge waste of just money and time and resources, honestly, putting
Yeah.
into the SSD. But that, I mean, I've been talking about that for a minute. I kind of want to go through the specs, just
Yeah.
so people can kind of gauge it for themselves. So the
Mhm.
PS5 Pro is 16.7 teraflops. I actually have it up on the screen,
Mhm.
but I have a comparison. So the PS5, this normal version, was 10 teraflops. So you're going against 16.7 versus 10 teraflops. The PS5 Pro has 2 terabyte SSD. The original had 825 gigabyte SSD. It added 2 gigabyte of DDR5 memory, added Wi-Fi 7 support. Um, the max 390 watt max power versus the
Mhm.
PS5, which is 350. It
Yeah.
added an extra USB-C port. It replaced the USB-A one. And yeah, that's what you're getting. So, those are like that's sort of the main comparisons from the PS5 to PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
The GPU power being 16.7 to Series X's 12.5 15, I think it was. So interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. So all the people out there, the D batches, all the people out there saying how it was close to being a 4070, 33 teraflops, all this different stuff. I actually seen even more than that. But yeah, that this isn't that device.
Yeah.
Mark Cerny said the upgrade for the GPU is 67% in that presentation, which
Mhm.
it's kind of corresponding to 16.7 from the
Mhm.
document. So PS5 is like 10 teraflops, but the 67 number that he mentioned, so the 10 teraflops plus 67% upgrade would add up to 16.7
Yep.
teraflops. So you can't reach 33 teraflops with 67%, but some people probably boasted that number because they double it for the RDNA thing.
Yeah.
Um, so a couple things that has come out since the PS5 Pro announced. Like it was basically a leak. I'm pretty sure. Like some of the packaging is starting to come early to people, the
Mhm.
specs and things like that. So that's why we're able to talk about it. So Digital Foundry mentioned that the ray tracing is the lowest and low of PC settings.
Mhm.
But you are seeing differences within the ray tracing, in my opinion. So if you
Yeah.
look at reflections, it's like a hit or a miss in some cases. But I'd be lying if I'd say there wasn't any difference, however small. But sometimes you definitely got to squint to see those differences. You're like, okay, I don't see a difference in this scene.
Yeah.
But whenever you look, I think where they really like to show it fuzzy is like mirrors or if you're in a bathroom or something. They keep showing stuff like that because that's where you'll sort of see like the ray tracing like hitting a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So cool if if you're into that. So you can yeah, so I understand the mentality of like wanting the best. I think this is best for people who don't have a PS5, in my opinion. So you can make that
Yeah.
upgrade if you did want to pay up to $800 plus, if you want the disk drive and stuff like that as well. Or if you're in another country, you start paying up to like 1K, like even possibly more, even a little bit more than that. That's where it gets
Yeah.
a little bit harder for me to choose start justifying that price point. Once it gets past the 1K barrier in my eyes, that's when you just like, okay, start looking towards a PC because you'll get some good prices out there, especially recently. I've seen like some really good PC um like specs out there. They're selling for like 1K, 1.5, things like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, overall, I think if someone just to ask me like how does this stack up, like I remember Matt was asking like in our DMs like what is this compared to like the Series X? I think the specs are honestly comparable to the Series
Mhm.
X in most performance cases. I think where we'll see the differences will be the ray tracing, like looking a little bit shinier here and there. Honestly, I think it could possibly lead to developers upping quality on the Series X as well.
Yeah.
Because Series X has a lot of features that the PS5 either doesn't have, or like there's certain features that a lot of developers don't use on the Series X because they prioritize PlayStation as the leading platform. So it actually could lead to people developers doing some things on Series X, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't put 100% into that statement just because like they're going to prioritize PlayStation even now, so they
Yeah.
could still kind of push Series X to the side, but it could. It definitely could. So I also want to just do a test. I'm just
Mhm.
curious for our viewers. Um, I'm gonna put up two pictures of Spider-Man. It's up on the screen now, and one of them is PS5 Pro and one of them is PS4. So I'm just curious if people like which one do you guys think is the PS5 Pro? You can vote, and let's see. Um, and Fuzz, if you have anything else to say on the PS5 Pro, that's
I,
like, yeah, go ahead.
no, I think like the biggest thing, if developers do lean into some of the features that are on the PS5 Pro, which some of that development will be similar to the utilities used for the series consoles, I think the advantage will be more so in resolution, just because of the hardware itself. And we're not talking like a great difference, although it could be in some cases where uh, the PS5 Pro will be like 2160, but it'll be what do they call that? Not
Like upres or
upscale or like
upscale.
a basically it would be adjustable or something along those lines where it's a variable, well, not refresh rate, but variable size as far as where it will be up to 2160. It may not stay there. It may downscale, with a lot of enemy or AI or explosions or something like that on screen. And then taking that same setup for the series console, it'll probably be like somewhere around 1800 or better, probably somewhere like the 19. I forget what the half number would be, like 1960 or something like that, where it would wind up being probably more consistent, but upscale to the 2160. So I think that will be where the difference is. And then we might see, oh, well, it's 120, pixels better. Okay, that's great, but it looks just as great on your 4K, 65-inch TV in any regard. And then I think, having something like VRR active, which I still think they have an issue with their VRR setup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that will be where the smoothness will come in. So if you have one of those more modern TVs with VRR support, I think that's where you'll notice a bigger difference on the series console. But overall resolution, I think, will be a smidge better on the PS5 Pro. But we remember those arguments like 1080p versus 900p, and the games look just as good at 900p in most cases. So we're talking about less of a difference in pixels, and I doubt people will, unless they're sitting 5 inches away from their screen, will probably not be able to tell the real difference. But that's
Yeah,
just my 2 cents.
we're starting to get into the what I call the squint wars at this point because I think the specs for games and stuff like we've almost hit a ceiling. I think it could be pushed more. So now like the next console, in my opinion, like it'll be mostly focused on what's missing from this generation, like consistency, being 60 frames, 4K, the things that's supposed to be in this generation. I feel like it's just more so in the next generation. That is if the developers stop relying on tools to optimize the game for them. It's the
Mm-hmm.
most annoying thing for me. It's something I talk about all the time on these shows. But it's like if developers constantly just rely on these tools to optimize the game for them, we'll never reach good optimization because you're just like you're always getting better specs, but then you're just like, oh, well, I get all this space in the world, and then we'll just end up in the same problem that we're in right now. Um, so I hope with the next console that developers start recognizing that, like, oh look, I got all this space now in the PS6. Look, I got. Let me add max ray tracing. I don't need to optimize. Let's put this on there. We'll just clean this up later. It's like the same problem.
Yeah.
Watch it be 30 frames again.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope yes, we can get better specs for these consoles. Sure, I'm down for that, but also these developers have to be held accountable a little bit because um, can't be relying on this tech. Now the tech does help. I do want to preface that. I think the tech to start making textures, say it's like 360p, and you up it to like 4K and you can't tell a difference. That's amazing. If they can start doing that, because that will save space. I don't want to be downloading Call of Duty at 400 gigabytes anymore in the future. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
so hopefully they figure stuff like that out. That's the power of AI, and I think that could do some cool things.
Yeah.
But overall, PS5 Pro wouldn't recommend it for me. But I think it's really good if you don't have a PS5. There's like minimal differences. Um, like you really have to squint. If you are really into like ray tracing and stuff, then cool. Performance also, like there's certain first party PlayStation games, like I think they showed some examples of like Final Fantasy where it's like combining modes, which I think is pretty cool. Like if you get
Mm-hmm.
um like you have to choose, right? If you fidelity mode 30 frames or 60 frames performance, and the performance one could look like blurry whatever, and they try to combine it. um I don't know if they do that for every game. I don't They're not doing it for every game because Alan Wake is still 30 frames and things like
Yeah,
that.
and same thing with what do you call them, Hogwarts? Yeah, it's still going to be 30 frames, but I think that'll be the best blend of performance and fidelity. But we'll
Yeah,
we'll see how their first party handles that hardware. That'll be the telling factor. And right now, anything that's not 60 is probably not going to be 60 on PS5 Pro, but we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah, we'll see. And to me, it loses several arguments just for its price point alone, in my opinion. Like you take out the disk drive and you sell it separately, like that's a loss in my opinion, because it's supposed to be the pro. When I think of a pro, I think of everything encompassing, like you are adding, not detracting.
Yeah. Like the
So like
iPhone, get the better cameras, the better chipset, and all that. That's the Pro.
Yeah.
bigger phone, you
You would
know.
think,
But
right? Like you get the standard phone, but it has like some good features, whatever. Then you get the Pro, which is like everything what the standard has,
Mhm.
plus or Pro more.
Yeah.
But yeah, they took some stuff away in this one. But for the price point, it's not my ideal scenario. Um, but yeah, again, I think this is great for people who don't have a PS5.
Yeah.
Um,
Or may not be interested in PC even. Like if PC is not in your near future, then I would say this is probably the best way to get some PC like quality. Um, it's not going to be a big jump from the regular PS5, but it'll be somewhat noticeable. It'll be like like if you're the person, if you were into PC that would go from a 3080 to a 4080 or from a 4080 to a 5080, then yeah, this is like the console equivalent. Not to those numbers specifically. Like this is, I would say, like somewhere closer to like 3080 range, to be honest. But
yeah,
some people will probably say differently. They keep on saying 4070, but I'm not seeing
yeah.
it because
Couple people are
AMD stuff is
saying,
not, at least in my opinion, not on par with some of the AM or Nvidia stuff. But that's a whole different story. But yeah,
yeah,
if you're
all
not
these
into
people,
PC, go with the PS5 Pro, and you'll feel like you bought a PC for that price. So yeah.
yeah, 100%. All these people out here saying this is 4090, 4070. I mean, there's certain things I don't like about Digital Foundry, but I mean, they went into a deep dive talk about the PS5 Pro and they talk about how the ray tracing is lower than the lowest setting on a lot of the games. So take
Yeah.
that what you will. I know some people are going to be disappearing from their comments, and it is what it is. So use your best judgment, the peeps out there. And yeah, so I'm gonna end the poll. So I'm just curious. So I ended the poll. So the bottom got 72, top got 27. So I guess I could reveal it now. Yeah. So the top one is the regular PS5. So you guys pretty much got it right. So it was 11 votes. The top one is the regular PS5. The bottom one was the PS5 Pro. Um, the differences I see every time I see comparison pictures with like the PS5 Pro, it feels like someone goes in their TV and like, oh, I gotta show this difference, and they they change the contrast to like
Mhm.
like I I don't know why I keep seeing that. Or maybe that's just what the PS5 Pro does, the colors or something. I don't know. It just is really weird to me. Like I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the ray tracing doesn't change the colors to max out your saturation to like 100%.
No, it's
But
almost like the HDR is kind of
it's kind of wonky.
overdoing it. It's weird. Like I was about to say that the Pro is the top until I looked at some of the edges on the buildings. Like the only
Mm,
thing really is that the bottom one looks slightly clearer,
hmm.
but in reality, the reflection off the glass, you should see more of the inside than you do. And you kind of see that with the top pick. You see some like almost like there's stuff behind it, as opposed to the bottom one where the saturation's so high, you can't
Yeah.
see anything on the other side of that window. So
So
it's
it's like
like,
goodness.
yeah, but if it wasn't for the building tops themselves, where you can see a little bit more of a jaggy or like softer edge on some of the building tops,
Hmm.
I would say the top one, because to me the top one looks a little bit better, except for the distant buildings in the
Mm.
reflection. But
Yeah, that's kind of it reminds me of did we talk about Until Dawn in the show? I remember what show I talked about Until Dawn. But that is a game, right? Where first off, it didn't need a remake. I don't know what Sony's fetish is with these remakes and remasters, but that is a game that definitely didn't need it. But it's like generationally, it looked great to begin with. So it's
Mhm.
like good luck to whoever's remaking or remastering the game, because then it becomes like, well, the game already looks great. Let's start changing this art style in a way, like start changing the colors to make it look different. Not
Mhm.
saying that that's what this is, but that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, I kind of like the first one because you could see a little bit more inside the building, and this is what this version does better, and whatever. But it's like when you're playing, most likely you're not, I don't know, you're not really going into these comparisons that Digital Foundry is, right? Where you're zooming in 8 times to see the tree in the background, like, oh, aha, that tree looks way, it looks different. You know, I could
The
see
shadow is better.
the shadows. It's crazy. Like I don't see myself doing that when I'm playing Spider-Man. Just like looking for those minute differences.
Mhm.
But I'm all for peeps like wanting the best. They're like, yeah, I want the best graphics, whatever setup. Like I'm like that. So I get that mentality.
Mhm.
Just not for that price point. I'm just saying. Um,
Mhm.
so anything else on PS5 Pro before we move on?
No, I think those that want it will get it. Those that don't see the value in it will probably wait until a PS6 comes out if they even want to bother with a PS console kind of thing. It's not for me. The only thing that's appealing to me for the PS5 Pro was kind of the similar thing that was appealing for the PSVR 2, and that would be for Gran Turismo. And it's like I'm not buying the P. I wasn't going to spend 600 to get the PSVR 2. I mean, I know it's on sale now for a lot less, but I would rather put that money towards a Meta Quest 3. And I'm definitely not trading in my current PS5 and and adding on an extra $300 because I got a PS5 with a disc, the original launch edition with the disc drive. So I'm not spending an extra $300 just to get what I pretty much have now for that, ray tracing on track. Like they finally did it, yay! But
Yeah.
did it really take that console to do it? I guess I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Because Forza was able to do that on the Series X. So it
Yep.
really just reminds me of like the Series X has a lot of capabilities. It has machine learning and things like that. You just don't see a lot of third party developers utilizing that. And to be fair, like I don't see every first party developer doing it either.
Yeah.
I think Senua Hellsblade 2 is probably the closest that have used like as much as they possibly could to get the most out of that game. But
Yeah.
like I didn't see Redfall use. I know Redfall used like FSR and some AMD
Mhm.
techniques. Because I like AMD talked about it. Like here's the comparison. They did the same thing with Deathloop, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. But it could be used more for sure.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of cool tech in that. Let's read some of the comments before we move on. We see Mike saying, I'm looking at 2 times zoom and I can't tell. Taylor's Ray say, I'm guessing the bottom one was the PS Pro. He called it. Definitely called it. Jack says the top one is the Pro, the bottom one is the PS4. See, I thought like a lot of people would pick the top one just because like the reflections does look looks kind of nice. It's like not too exaggerated. It's kind of like
Mhm.
wow, yeah, that looks pretty nice. And the bottom one like looks very exaggerated. Like his color is red is like very. So I was like, oh, maybe people talk, but yeah, I could see what Fuzzy kind of about like the edge of that building right there.
Mhm.
There is that random blur on that, but I don't know. Anyways, the Susa says the color on Spider-Man is too red on the Pro. FSR is terrible. It makes games look like soup.
Mm.
Um, did Deathloop have FSR? Like
Yeah,
like
they added it, I think, when it came to Xbox. I don't think it was there when it launched on the original PS5, but I think they
mm,
added it. It did kind of mess a few things up, at least for the I think it messed things up more so for PC players than it did for console players. Because I remember a few people that I know that played it on PC that were saying the FSR needs work still. But now it plays great on my PC as well as on the Series X. So I think they've gotten a lot of that stuff fixed since then, or at least in my experience. But your mileage may vary. Like I'm just
Mm.
running a 3080 that's overclocked. I don't have a 40 series card. I figure I'll wait until a 50 series card, and I gotta start saving up for it now. So we'll see.
Yeah, I get what he's talking about though. Well, I don't know if it's FSR, but I know Unreal games, a lot of them do look like clay and soup. Um,
Yeah.
but that's just their rendering techniques that they do to load in objects.
Mhm.
I absolutely despise that look. It's like I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just like everything is just gray and it's like someone smudged your screen in Vaseline kind of look.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm with you, Susa. That I don't like that soup look, but I think people are figuring it out. 'Cause it's useful, I guess, for devs to optimize their game, like this cool little techniques for um distant, optimization, filtering, things like that. Um, so yeah, it could be cool if developers are starting to figure out, and like what Fuzzy was saying, I think they're on the right track to doing so. So, Fuzzy, could you talk to D-Batch? I think you guys explained it, did you? Maybe. Yeah, we'll
I
both talk to him.
I have I don't feel like losing brain cells explaining it to somebody. Like, because even with this stuff coming out, as far as like it's saying that it's the 16.7, which makes perfect sense, like you said, with the 67 increase,
Hmm.
percent increase, he's still posting, oh no, it's in between, this series and this series video card. And it's like, okay, great. That's wonderful. You're arguing about a console, but you also play on PC. It's like that's weird. That's almost like somebody with a Ferrari arguing with somebody driving a
Honda
90s
Civic.
Civic. Yeah, it's like I mean they're both wonderful cars for different purposes, but like I can't really see one arguing with the other one about that.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but it is what it is. Maybe he needs the attention that RDX is no longer a thing. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't mean to be mean in saying that, but
Yeah.
it feels like ever since RDX kind of part ways,
It's crazy statements that have been coming out.
he's definitely, like, I know people pick on Fonz. I don't have an issue with Fonz. I know people pick on Colt. I don't have an issue with Colt, but D-Batch just seems like he's kind of fallen off a wagon or something. And then we all know the story of Tim, and I'll just leave it at that type
Yeah.
of deal. But outside of that, it's like that's why I'm on Blue Sky now. It's like I get to
Oh, I
post
need to go
videos
on
and
Blue Sky.
clips and pics and stuff, and it's like, oh, that's cool. As opposed to people like, you play it on Xbox? Like, really?
I
Like,
remember, this is funny that you said that. I remember when I posted Spider-Man 2 gameplay,
mhm.
and I ran into like all these bugs, and people was legitimate in saying like, "Oh, you're purposely looking for bugs in Spider-Man 2." And my response to that was like, "Well, if I would let's just say in a hypothetical world, I was looking for bugs in Spider-Man 2.
Mhm.
The bugs are still in there in the game.
Right.
Like, you want to explain that part? Like, I could, if you want me to, I could. Yeah, sure. Let's say I did it. The bugs are still in the game, and I ran into there was 3 or 4 different videos I posted of different bugs. So you
Yeah.
want to? Okay, I ran into 3, 4 bugs that I did purposefully. Okay. No, I didn't. I'm just saying, like in this
No, but
hypothetical.
they don't have an answer for that, because it's like, well, then who did the QC for this game? Like, did they even bug test this game at that point? It's like people like to, poke fun at Bethesda, and it's like, no, this game about a bug man is buggy. Like, that should be like, not saying, oh, you did it on purpose. It should be like, hey, Insomniac, fix this. Like, that should be the talking points. Like, hey, maybe they'll give a patch in like a day or two or something. But
Yeah.
no, you purposely did that. You're looking for trouble. Like, wait,
Yeah,
no,
I was
I'm
saying
playing the
that
game.
was like I think people just got mad because that was Sony's game. for
Hmm.
that year, and I was saying like, hey, listen, I love Miles Morales. I love
Hmm.
Spider-Man, the first one. Miles Morales, I actually like probably the most. I don't know. I digged it. I was Miles Morales
Yeah.
for Halloween. There's probably some bias there, but like Spider-Man 2 was the buggiest game I played that year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, I'm sorry, this was my experience. I'm sorry, I'm running into bugs, and I'm playing as Mary Jane, and she's flying through walls, and I'm just like trying to beat this boss, but I get kicked out of bounds, and then the boss is trying to hit me, but it can't because I'm stuck in some invisible wall. Like, I don't know. And I feel like people are starting to now come to the realization, like, oh, Spider-Man 2 is probably a little rushed.
Yeah.
But I mean, it took like a year or 2 years for them to come to this conclusion. But um, overall, hope the best for Insomniac. All these people out here, just you're gonna get your actors out here
Hmm.
who are gonna say things like PS5 Pros, a 4090 comparisons and things like that. PC will always be the top experience.
Hmm.
What I do like about consoles is the ease of convenience. I like consoles more than PCs, but I'll never say that. I'll never say. I do hope we get closer. And each console generation does get closer to PCs, especially
Yeah.
like this generation is probably the closest generation to PCs we've ever gotten, with like the architecture, right?
Hmm.
But we're not at that level to be comparing something that could do like max ray tracing to the PS5 Pro, which can barely do the lowest form of ray tracing. So let's just be a little bit more realistic here.
Yeah.
Um, so, anyways, let's read some of these and then we'll get to our second topic. Um, I don't see myself getting a console next generation unless there's a compelling reason. Feel that a lot of people are saying like, hey, I think even me and Fuzzy both had a similar mindset where like Xbox is having a lot of PC games, Sony's having some PC games that's starting to go in. Maybe we just like Gabe Newell, he's winning the console war without doing anything. He's the actual winner here. So yeah, I understand that. You're not getting a PS5 Pro and 8K TV for GT7, Fuzzy.
No, like
Some
for
regular.
me, as much as I love that game, I'm not going to spend that kind of money for it. Like I used to be that guy in the past that had the racing simulator before racing simulators was a thing. I worked for a company for aftermarket auto stuff. I had a racing seat. I had a base for the racing seat that had a mount for the steering wheel and pedals. And I didn't do the triple monitor setup. I had a what was it, a 42 or 46-inch LG, whatever their smaller TVs were at the time. Like when most people were getting 55-inch, I had the 40, I think it was like a 42 for it. Um, and that was what I had for a setup for a while, but that was all for PC stuff.
Mhm.
And then eventually I switched out the PC because I got tired of, wait, what broke it for me? I think it was it Windows 7? No, Windows Vista was like the last straw
Oh,
for PC for me. Like
yeah.
Windows ME back in the day was a nail biter type of thing. I hated it. But Vista was like the last straw because I had just upgraded a lot of other stuff, but Vista was meant for the next stuff. And I wasn't ready to go that route because I was still using Voodoo cards, which to me, they were better than what NVIDIA and AMD were doing back then.
Mhm.
And yeah, I gave up on that, then turned it into my just wheel and pedals because I had stopped using the seat at that point because I would sit on the couch for when I would start playing like the NASCAR games on my Xbox and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not 8K TV like until content is on the regular and somehow FiOS is like a 5 gig up and down for a reasonable amount a month. Like I'm not doing a business plan
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And to have an 8K TV, it's like there's not enough people with 8K red cameras out there making content for me to justify spending.
But
I mean, you
Sony
can get
Sony
some for
said it
like
was
three.
8K, right? It says
Mhm.
on the box. At least on the regular one. They took
I
that
mean,
away.
it that see, I always looked at that as if you have an 8K TV, it can connect and it will make an attempt to upscale. So it's not
Yeah.
like it puts the 4K picture on your 8K screen. It's going to enlarge the 4K image to
To
an
an
8K
8K.
image.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be as crisp as an actual solid 8K image. And like it feels like the 4K adoption just happened a couple of years ago, and I had a 4K TV like a while ago, and it was like frustrating, cutting the cable. I stopped doing cable and all that because I think at the time Comcast wasn't even doing 4K on cable, and
Yeah.
we're talking like 2010 or something like that. They still weren't doing. Well, maybe it was earlier than 2010. All I know is I cut the cable like it's got to be like 20 years now, but it was one of those things where I just hated that none of the stuff out there was 4K when I have a 4K TV, and I'm like, yeah, I'll never do that again. And everybody's like, oh, 8K is the next thing. It's like not
No.
not for me, not until I see YouTube everything being 8K and Netflix being 8K. I mean, they barely do 4K unless you turn like I can't remember the guy's name that always complains about, how you get effed in the rear kind of thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
James or something like that. I forget his name, but he's the one that always points out that Apple tries to screw us and the car companies try to screw us. And he's like, yeah, you can't even get Netflix in 4K on your 4K TV unless you put it where you give all your information online and
Oh.
stuff, or you have to get like specific TVs that
Mm-hmm.
have by default that it does the information sharing and all that for it to be a locked 4K and all. It's
I didn't
like,
even know that. That's crazy.
I mean, most like if you're doing it through your Xbox is 4K, you might get it where you'll see some artifacting in some of the imagery. But if you're just doing it off of a TV app, most of the apps are only pushing out 1080 upscale to 4K, unless you have it where, or at least on LG anyway, unless you do like by default you share your info and all that stuff. And it's like I don't even like have my TV online except for to have that. And then when I was doing that and not having my info available, I was running out of space, which the thing has like a 4 gig like built-in drive in the TV or something like that. And I'm like, how am I running out of space? But if you give them your information, it I guess flushes that because it takes the information and then flushes it as opposed to
Mm.
stacking it up, hoping that one day you'll not look and they'll do an update of terms of service and take all that stored info that keeps on taking up space kind of thing. But
Mm.
maybe I'm paranoid. I don't know.
I mean, I have beef with Netflix, man. Like you know how when you're about to cancel a subscription service, they're like, "Wait, don't
Mhm.
go. Here's like 5% off, or here we'll do this week free or something." Netflix is like, "Okay, bye." They don't even try. They're just like, "Okay, peace."
Mhm.
Oh man, and like
They know
Netflix,
you'll be back. It's
yeah, like
just
you know
we'll
you'll
have
be back.
Stranger Things next season. So yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be back.
What's annoying is they're freaking right. That's because I cancel my Netflix, but Stranger Things is around the corner.
Mhm.
I'm about to resubscribe. But dang, I'm so mad. I'm mad at Netflix because they have some good stuff on there.
Yeah.
But their pricing structure, like I can't share with like my family and stuff anymore. Like they've been
Mhm.
hammering down on that stuff. I hate that stuff. But shout out to
Yeah.
Web Dave, by the way. He sent
Oh
out
wow.
his peeps over here. So shout out to you, Web Dave, and everybody who dropped in from his show. Uh, he does it like almost every episode that we do on Sunday. So I appreciate it, man. Always appreciate their support. It does not go unnoticed. And everybody
Mhm.
who's in here from Web Dave's show, welcome. Me and Fuzz, we be chilling, talking
Yeah.
about
I mean,
games
that
and all.
scrub nurse, he was actually on the panel and stuff today. So
Yeah, me
yeah.
and Scrub we did like maybe one show together, me and Scrub Nurse. It's been a
Mhm.
while, Nurse. Good to see you, man. Um Game adaptation newscast. He's like, that's where I came from. Awesome, awesome. Uh Read some of these and then we'll head on this next topic. But a lot of good, interesting topics for PS5 Pro. It went into a lot of different directions. Froggy, I use Plex to avoid most streaming services, run my own server at home. Ooh, so I am on my friend's Plex service and I basically treat him like my streaming device. I'm like, hey, can you add like I don't know, like Sex in the City season 2? or something like that. And you're like, I got you. So I have a Plex Connect. So shout out to the people out there with a Plex Connect. Amazon Prime straight up buried that cancel menu in a labyrinth. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't even know how to cancel Amazon Prime. I'm not even gonna try. Um, what's up, Fuzzy? Coming from P1553D. Shout out to you,
Nice.
man. Shout out to everybody who dropped in. Let's move on to the second topic, which is Black Ops 6. So, Black Ops 6 selling very well
Oh
overall.
yeah.
So according to Tom Warren, he says, Satya Nadella says last week's launch of Black Ops 6 was the biggest Call of Duty release ever, setting a record for day one players as well as Game Pass subscriber ads on launch day. Unit sales on PlayStation and Steam were also up over 60% year over year. Follow that up by basically saying setting new day one and opening weekend records as sales on PlayStation, saying the 60% jump. And then it says Game Pass also benefited from Call of Duty's release, setting a new record for amount of new subscribers in a single day. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 launch last week saw strong concurrence on Steam that outperformed Modern Warfare 2 and 3.
Mhm.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So Fuzzy, just curious. So let me get this straight. So Call of Duty is dropping on Game Pass, but it's also launching on PlayStation and PC at the same time, and people are still buying it. Like what? Like that just why?
I thought them putting it in the service would kill Xbox and kill Call of Duty.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know about you guys,
Ah.
but that's what I heard. It's like it's it just goes to show that like a game can still be wildly successful when you give
Mhm.
players multiple options and entry points. Like who would have thought giving players choice could work so well and somehow Xbox is still alive at the same time? Like what? Like that's it's almost like the narratives that Call of Duty being on Game Pass, which would cannibalize sales. Yet this is one of the
Mhm.
most successful Call of Duties yet, and it's on Game Pass, right? And so it just
Yeah.
kind of just goes to show you like people are comfortable in the platform they own. So like you give people options to buy Call of Duty for $70 or play it through a streaming service for like $20 a month. People are like, I'll just buy it for $70. Or like me, they're like, oh, yeah, I got it $20 a month.
Mhm.
So like for me, I stack up my Game Pass as much as I can. And then I just play stuff when it releases, so I don't feel it as hard as maybe some other people might. But yeah,
Mhm.
the fight against Game Pass, honestly, I'll never understand the mentality to hate something not for what it offers you. You don't hate the fact that it offers you great content. You hate the fact that in a hypothetical future where you see it failing, you don't see how it's sustainable, right? But that's the problem with that argument is that means your basis for hating Game Pass isn't based on the actual value of what's in the thing, it's for what it might do. So it's like too good to be true, so you hate it kind of vibes. Like I can
Mhm.
never get that mentality. I can understand like not liking like I would prefer to just I don't know just buy it $70 and
Yeah.
whatever. Cool, it's not even I'm arguing against that. Like it's just like people hating Game Pass. Like I think it's gonna fail or like look what happened to Blockbuster and stuff like that. Like
Oh, that was so funny.
yeah, yeah. All those argument points. And Call of Duty is the most successful franchise probably of all time. And if this isn't like a case study to like how Game Pass could work with like a huge game such as this, I don't know what to tell y'all.
Mhm.
Like that constant fight against Game Pass, like man, how can this be sustainable? It's not even about like the fact that like wow, I want this game Call of Duty. That's amazing. It's about like oh, how can Xbox do this? Like what are the profits? Let me see the money. Like how is this possible? Sort of vibes. I can never understand that. I'm just like hey, I'm a customer. cool, it's in Game Pass. I'll try it.
Mhm.
Like this is coming from a person who hasn't really delved into a Call of Duty game since like Black Ops 2, the Xbox 360, which I said in the intro. So Fuzzy, I thought Game Pass would kill this game. What happened? This give me the news. What's the jam?
All right, so where to start? Like, all right, so once Xbox had gotten to the talks of acquiring Activision, there was a certain segment of people that were like, "Oh, Call of Duty's heading out. It's on a downswing. It's failing. It'll be dead in a year. Xbox will kill Call of Duty." And you know, everybody was happy for Modern Warfare 2. There were some gripes about what Modern Warfare 3, but overall, those that played it actually enjoyed it. And it made a decent amount of money considering it was the last of the Sony marketing contract. It seemed like that was, I wouldn't say thrown together, but it seemed like it was put together in a way to fulfill that contract so that way they could do what they did this year. And kudos to them because this was like the perfect game to launch into the service, where you have a Return to Black Ops, which people, I'm more of a Modern Warfare guy, but a lot of people do prefer the Black Ops series over it. Um, to have something like Omni Movement in there, the Human Shield stuff, uh, bringing zombies back to more of the classic setup, all of those things was like the perfect combination. And then those people saying that Call of Duty is dead and blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. It's like, yeah, I see you playing offline. We know you're playing because your stats still show in Call of Duty. It just may not show
We
that you're
see
on your
you.
console playing. So there's those that were like, yeah, I'm refunding it, and it's like, okay, you're refunding it so you can play it in Game Pass. Good luck. Yeah. And, oh, they canceled the dollar. Well, sucks to be you that you don't stay
You don't
subscribed or
care
know
about
about
Game
Microsoft
Pass,
reward points.
right? Yeah, you don't care about Game Pass anyway, so that shouldn't just
Right.
upset you. The dollar deal.
Yeah. I mean, they were the ones that complain about Game Pass. So why are you upset about the dollar? Like the people that are subscribed aren't really upset about the dollar thing because it's not like we haven't all done that at some point, and now we have other ways to kind of keep it rolling or keep adding to it or stacking it. So it is what it is. But um, putting this game in Game Pass, I think now all the pundits that looked on and said that this would be a bad financial move are now eating crow. You put a good game in the service, and it's available everywhere. It's still going to sell because it's available everywhere. It's available on PC. It's available on PlayStation, and guess what? It'll probably be available on Switch too when that comes out.
Yep.
So, all of that being said, you still have a dedicated fan base. It's on Xbox as well. So, there's still going to be those that choose not to subscribe to Game Pass that are going to still buy it. There's going to be those of us that already have a subscription of Game Pass and are either just going to play it in the base form, or we might do the $30 upgrade for the Vault Edition because, hey, since we didn't spend the $70 on the game itself, spending the extra 30 for the extra stuff doesn't seem too bad of a deal. Maybe you got some extra money to put towards some skins or seasonal stuff because I'm hearing, Master Chief might be one of the skins that they have in the near future.
Ooh.
So you can spend that 70 in different ways, or you could put that 70 back in your pocket because you want to put it towards groceries or whatever the case may be. But I saw that joke that somebody, well, they didn't post it as a joke, but they were asking like an honest question, like, why is it that people make you feel like you're doing something wrong by subscribing to Game Pass when those same people probably rented from Blockbuster. And then there was one joker in particular that was like, "Well, Blockbuster went out of business." Yeah,
Yeah.
they went out
Yes.
of
Yes.
business because of a subscription service that was still doing the rental version of subscription. So that kind of makes the point even stronger of why you shouldn't make fun of Game Pass or look at it as a bad thing. It's an option. You can still buy the games. If you're subscribed, you buy them at a discount, or you can get the upgrades at a discount as opposed to spending $100, you spend $30, or just play it on a different platform and spend the $70. Xbox and Microsoft don't care what you do as long as you enjoy the game and give them money, whether it's in subscription, upgrade, or full purchase.
Yep.
They still get money. they still win. And the knuckleheads in the financials of gaming media saying that, oh, Sony's 30% is going to be, or I think it's actually 20%, because a few people were telling me that, I guess, shout out to Web Dave, because he had made mention of this on one of
Mm.
his podcasts before. Mueller or Mueller, or one of the
Florian?
guys that was basically like the acquisition guys
Yeah,
or
yeah,
acquisition,
Florian. Yeah.
yeah, on Twitter and stuff, was saying that no, that was like because Sony waited till the last minute. They only get a 20% cut to Microsoft's 80. So basically they get the old deal that Microsoft had to deal with Activision. But either way you look at it, if Microsoft is getting 80 off of any PlayStation sale and 100% off of any Xbox or PC Microsoft Store sale, and they still get the 70% from Gabe for any PC sale, and I think they sell it on Epic as well, and you know, they're still getting money. There's no mathematical way, unless Black Ops 6 costs over 1.5 billion dollars, no, yeah, 1.5 billion dollars, that you would have to sell more than 20 million copies on Sony alone
Mhm.
to outdo what Xbox is making off of everything. But once again, that's still based, that number or math was based off of 70 to 30%, 30% cut for PlayStation, 70% cut for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And it would be like no other sales were done anywhere else, which we know can't happen because we already know it sold well on Steam alone. And the only reason why that would make that type, you would have to sell that many, is because that would exceed what their cost was of making that game at that point. But once again, if you're selling 20 million copies on PlayStation, that still gives you plenty of money, or gives Microsoft plenty of money to cover their expense. Like, the only other thing that would put it out of that equation would be maybe the marketing, if that's separate. But I can't see, even with the marketing, this being a $1.5 billion expense. Like, it could be, but I have my doubts. I think this is like maybe $500 million at most. Um, and with that being said, there's no way Sony's going to be in better financial shape, regardless of the sales numbers, than what Microsoft would be on this franchise now. But it's a great so far, as far as what, just playing the campaign. Haven't dived into multiplayer yet. I suck at multiplayer, so I'll probably just
Yeah,
stay in my
I did
lane
play a
with the
little bit.
campaign. But zombies, I'll probably dive into zombies, because I'm on my zombie kick with State of Decay 2. So at some point I will hop in and do that. But I don't understand why people thought that this would be the downfall of Microsoft or Activision or Call of Duty. I guess wishful thinking, because now this financial juggernaut is going to help fuel more revenue for Microsoft and Xbox in general, which can be then reinvested into first party or other acquisitions. So their enjoyment of this game helps pay for more Xbox games. And, maybe they can, hope and pray that, those games come over to PlayStation or whatever. But whatever the case may be, I'm happy that this thing is in Game Pass. I'm happy that there's options to do the vault upgrade for $30. I'm glad that there are options for the people to still buy it if they choose to, or buy it at a discount if they, are already subscribed to Game Pass. I like the fact that your progression carries over. The only drawback would be like additional content. So if you bought a pack that's on Xbox, I don't think that carries over to PC. I could be wrong, but at least your progression still counts
Okay.
across the board, which that's something I think Activision was working on doing in Modern Warfare 3 time, or maybe even before that. So it's great to see that they're making this play anywhere aspect of things work. It's just a matter of, well, if you get it through Game Pass on Xbox and then you decide to buy it on PlayStation, it's just that you'll have to actually buy it on PlayStation at that point. So, but it's great to see. I'm so glad that they hit the ground running with this, and that the numbers are showing that this was a large release for this game. And hopefully all subsequent Call of Duties wind up being the same type of deal Although I would like to see them do every other year or take a break in between to
Yeah.
allow them to do this much dev time. Because I think that's the biggest thing that shows through. Like when they have that extra time, the story is better. The fluidness of the movement is better. Everything seems to work. And nobody really, I guess, gives them credit for having like, well, I haven't seen anybody complain about server issues as of yet, but I
Mhm.
would say considering the size of the game and the amount of people playing, the fact that I don't remember hearing that many people complain about any server issues is a phenomenal thing. So
Yeah.
great game, great service, and haters are gonna be mad. Let them eat crow.
100%. I mean, I just the conversations, if you guys just backtrack to when the when basically Xbox announced the acquisition and what people thought it meant, and people like Call of Duty would never go on Game Pass. Like look at like some live streams for from that, by the way, of when Call of Duty was announced to go to Xbox. This goes on some channels, and look at what the response was of thing like Xbox would never put it on Game Pass. That would cannibalize sales and things like that. Similar conversations to when the game um, was announced, Black Ops 6 was announced to go to Game Pass. Similar things people say will cannibalize sales. It would be bad for Xbox and Microsoft to do that. Fuzzy just hit it on the nail with a lot of different points. The fact that like, hey, if you are on PlayStation and PS5, PS4, whatever, and that is your platform of choice, and you're like, I don't want to move. A lot of people are like that. A lot of people are comfortable in the platform that they want to vibe in, that they want to play Call of Duty in, and they will decide to spend that $70 despite it maybe being cheaper on Xbox, or you basically are giving people different options to opt in, and that's good for Microsoft all around. Because if you want to pay for that $70, it's like this weird mentality where a lot of people are like, oh, because I'm helping out Sony because I'm buying it on the PS5. Like, you guys don't get that it doesn't exactly work like that. Like, sure, maybe a little bit, but if you are buying it in general, then yes, you are contributing to the success of Xbox, which is what they wanted. This is why Sony fought so hard in court to basically say like, hey, we lose Call of Duty, this is the end of our, whatever they said. Um, but overall, it's interesting. It's like an interesting case study too, because like this is the biggest game in gaming history right now. Like if you always look at the top 10 games, it's always like Minecraft, always like a Call of Duty and a GTA. So if you were to put any game into Game Pass and then relegate the success of the platform and how many people would buy it as opposed to going in Game Pass, et cetera, this is the best example you can probably get, being Call of Duty, right? So that's pretty good. Um, I love the fact that it's in Game Pass. I think it's cool. I think they need to start adding more into Game Pass, like more of the. I know they're working on it, or they said they were working on it. Who knows what has changed in the sphere of Xbox? But I do know that I would love to see like the Tony Hawk games in there. I would love to see all that stuff in there. That's just me, the selfish part of me. But overall, it's like it's very very interesting. Let me read some of these comments because you guys are doing very awesome chat combos, and I want to get to some of them. So let's just get through some of it. So OCD gamer, as always, throws tomatoes at me, but I did the little dance emoji, so I dodged it for now. But he's gonna come back, so I'll be ready. Shout out to you, OCD. You got negative zero saying, why is it that the absolute worst takes from the most intellectually deficient influencers spread so easily? Tired of these usual suspects broadcasting their fun. If you're just talking about like, I think it with if you're talking about the whole Call of Duty, like making this kind of destroying the value Game Pass and Game Pass. is going to fail in the future. Like that's something I kind of talked about in the beginning. Like a lot of people's mentality isn't the value of Game Pass. Like I think it's pretty incredible that Call of Duty is in Game Pass.
Mhm.
It's basically about the future of like, oh, I think Game Pass is going to fail, so I hate it right now, so I could tell people like later, like, haha, see, I told you, look at what I said before. That's kind of, in my opinion, people's mentality, and that kind of ripples to the media as well because they don't see how Game Pass can be successful in any light. Um, but I don't look at it that way, and I've explained multiple times why I don't look at it that way. But it just comes down to the value for me. I don't care to that point of like how like pocket watching, like how much money did Game Pass make? Oh, what does that mean for me? I'm just like, cool. Call of Duty's in Game Pass. I get to play it. That's kind of the lens I usually look at it from. I look at it from the consumer lens. I feel like a lot of people should look at it from that lens of just like, hey, like if the X is cheaper, cool, I'm going to X. Did I get good value here? Cool, that's where I'm going. I go where I personally think the value is going. So I mean, that's how I look at it. You got Susa saying, look at the Dino Crisis release on PS Plus. They lock it to PS Plus Premium, no option to purchase outside of subscribing. I've heard about this. I didn't know that was true though. Um,
That
wow.
sounds like Sony.
I mean, honestly, I shouldn't even have second guessed it because it does sound like a Sony kind of thing. But that does suck. A lot of people are looking for a Dino Crisis type game for a while. I honestly don't know why it's not in development. I mean, I hope it's in development. But yeah, that is interesting. So he's saying it's only on PS Plus. Like you can't
So it's
buy it
probably like,
outside.
yeah, it's probably delisted or something like that on the PlayStation Store. So
Hmm. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, can you really be complaining about Game Pass with something like that? I don't know. That's weird. I'm gonna look into that. Um, and then you say that's some bullshit, Tony. Yeah. Scrub Nurse, the servers have been running the smoothest ever. So I've only played a little bit of the. So I started playing the multiplayer in Black Ops 6, and then I'm like, I die like every 5 seconds, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna play the campaign just for a little bit. So that's where I did. I beat the campaign. Super good, super good. I really enjoyed the campaign. I actually might replay it and do like a harder difficulty. I think I just did medium or whatever the default is. I can't remember what I
Mhm.
chose, but I might go back and do hard mode because there's a lot of sections. There's actually open world sections. I won't spoil it for those who haven't played it, but there's a lot of things you could probably miss on your first playthrough, surprisingly. Um, so definitely liking this Call of Duty year. Negative Zero says they haven't seen nothing yet. 2025 is going to be a haymaker after haymaker all year long.
Yeah, starting with Avowed.
Starting with Avowed. I'm actually with Pong with the Avowed thing. It could have been this year. All the games pushed out to the year now Avowed is in. So, I mean, hey. It
It's still
is
going to
what
be
it
a
is.
stacked year. And I think probably the biggest thing is, having it where it's in Game Pass. You can always come back to it if you miss it day one. I forget the other game I was looking forward to that's going to be around the same time, but knowing me, I'll probably still be playing Stalker 2 or Indiana Jones, whichever one. I think Indiana Jones I could probably finish sooner, at least through the story. We'll see how much replayability it has. Probably just play it once though. But Stalker 2, I'm going to be trying some things with, the famous no armor, all meds, with a pistol to play through, and
Hmm.
then see what other weapons I can find because they said the more you search, the better weapons you'll find. So see what upgraded assault rifles and sniper rifles I can find out there. So
Yeah, yeah. And we'll be talking about Indiana Jones. That's our last topic. So definitely gonna get into that conversation because I'm looking forward to that game.
yeah.
But yeah, you said haymaker after haymaker all year long. Yeah. 2025 is looking good. Um, and it's weird. I last year was insane. This year was insane. I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, there's nothing to play." I'm like, "Where?" I wish there was nothing to play right now. There's too much to play. Um, Scrubner says, "I definitely said it would go to Game Pass and stay multi-platform. This thing makes
Mhm.
too much money not to. Xbox doesn't need players to move, just play the games and spend money on microtransactions." If you're talking about like when it was first announced, what did I even think? I can't remember what I initially thought. I think maybe I did think it would be multi-plat. I'm trying to remember my exact thoughts to when it was purchased. I think I thought Call of Duty would say multi-plat, but some other ones was questionable,
Mhm.
like Overwatch or something like that. Like I guess that could be multi-plat, but like I
Yeah.
was thinking future Blizzard games. I'm like, I don't know. I could
I,
probably be exclusive, but yeah, go ahead.
no, I was thinking it would stay multi-plat, but I was hoping like maybe some campaigns become exclusive. Like Warzone would be like the multi-plat and your typical Call of Duty. Although if they were to do like a switch or a change where your main campaign and multiplayer versions come out every other year or something like that, and the in between year might be like a campaign add-on or like we me and Pong had talked about like this crazy idea of like some people like the old movement style of Call of Duty, so possibly have like in between where it's like classic Call of Duty, not a remake, but bring back some of the movements and stuff like that, some of the weapons, some of the maps from like classic Call of Duty, and that could be your holdover until the next, Modern Warfare or Black Ops or something like that. Um, I mean that was about the only thing I was hoping that they would kind of go like exclusive, especially if they were to do like a um, some sort of like crossover between like let's say Wolfenstein and Call of Duty or something like
Ooh,
that
yeah.
type of thing. Like the next time they have a World War II campaign kind of deal. Maybe mix in Wolfenstein. It's like if you don't do certain things, you wind up playing Wolfenstein. If you don't like, beat some of the objectives or something like that within a certain amount of time, and then that can put a whole different spin on how you play Call of Duty from there. But
Yeah. I always thought like
it's great that it's multi-plat.
yeah, yeah. And someone just mentioned like Roberto Z says it makes too much money to change the release recipe. I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if they're gonna make Duty of Call and then that exclusive. I was like, but no, I don't see them changing the formula anytime soon. There are other franchises like maybe we talked about like Elder Scrolls and
Mhm.
stuff like that, possibly being multi-plat as well as it has in the past. Then we talked about like maybe they don't, maybe it's more of a timed exclusive thing, kind of like Indiana Jones, and some things maybe it's just outright exclusive. I think it's honestly it's a battle within Satya and Phil probably battling it out. No, probably I think Phil is fine with multi-plat stuff. It's probably like some of the internal executives versus other money peeps figuring out like what is worth it to be exclusive and multi-plat and all this different stuff. So we'll see what they end up doing. Scrubner says we could jump in. You can jump in with me anytime. 3-bit and fuzzy. The campaign is straight fire, and please use some good headphones. It is definitely worth it for sure, man. For sure, I would be down. Um, OCD says he's watching 2 podcasts at once. I'm talented. Shout out to Mav. I know he's streaming right now. He's playing some games.
Yeah.
Um, P1553D says, "Come on in, take your lumps until you get good." Listen, man, I used to play Call of Duty competitively. I used to play Halo competitively. I think I'm just getting old. My response time isn't what it used to be. And you have these people like I'm like, aha, I'm about to kill somebody, and I'm like raising the gun at them, and then they just turn around like, pew, and then they just like run away. I'm like, well, dang.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just not what it used to be. But um, I do agree with the get good mentality.
Mhm.
I think I like playing games on hard mode. I like eventually just playing the heck out of games so you get good. So I think once I replay a little bit of the campaign, I will get good. So I appreciate it. I will get good eventually, just not now. Got Stalker 2, Marvel Rivals. Yeah, Marvel Rivals is what I was comparing to Concord. I'm like, bro, this game is about to be free and you are trying to charge people. Like, okay, it wouldn't be
Oh,
me,
well,
but
hey, we saw how that wound up.
we literally did. Yeah, I think I always say this is freaking funny. Mav was saying like Concord uh, lasted as long as the life of a Concord grape. I think the Concord grape lasts longer
I
than Concord, which I is freaking crazy.
know somebody
Um,
bought a Concord sweatshirt. I told him keep the tag on it. It's gonna be a collector's item.
yeah, yeah. I
I mean,
think
it's a
some
cool looking
people was were
sweatshirt. It's
some.
just it's a shame that they closed, but it's like I I, I actually I feel worse for Jade Raymond and Haven Studio because it's like if Sony hasn't learned or if they haven't learned from what they saw with Firewalk and Concord, history will repeat itself. So
Yeah,
hopefully they get something figured out to make it more appealing to people when they do their beta tests. Like if they have another, oh, it's only 2,000 people during the beta and it's an open beta, yeah, they I can see full on panic mode inside the walls of PlayStation proper, but that's
yeah.
just me.
You would think like from beta to release, you would start changing things, right? But they looked at the beta, was like, still release it anyways. Like, okay, like you didn't learn from like the player numbers, and the beta ended up having more numbers than the release. So it's just like, okay, yeah, a lot of things with Concord where I'm like, you guys could have solved some of these issues in my mind pretty clearly, but maybe there was some internal things it sounded like it was going on where they couldn't put up certain things. I don't know. I don't know what's true with the Concord development, but it makes me go back to when they purchased Bungie, which I still think it was a bad purchase. Um, where they said we are buying Bungie for their expertise in multiplayer, like live service games.
Mhm.
That like I think that was on the official Bungie document thing.
Mhm.
Um, it makes me believe like that was genuinely true. Like at first I was like, I don't know how much, but yeah, yeah. Um, I mean that's not turning out well, as we know with Bungie.
I I
But
I guess I should have been more vocal. I do remember making posts and then people yelling at me for saying that Microsoft couldn't afford Bungie. And that's not how I
mm,
phrased it. I remember when they were looking to do that expansion, and I'm like, I bet you they talked to Phil already, and it doesn't look like anything came of it. That probably the price was too high. And I said the price was too high, not that Microsoft couldn't afford it, but like Phil was probably like, oh, you want 3 billion? Yeah, we were thinking more like 1.5, maybe two.
yeah,
And that's what I mean by the price is too high. Like there was no wiggle room on the negotiation. They wanted more than what Phil was willing to write the check for. Not that he couldn't write a larger check, but he didn't feel it was necessary. And whether that's because they were cooking the books and he knew something was up where some of the the dumpster fire stuff that has come out of that, maybe he saw it firsthand, or maybe he knew some inside info and it was like, yeah, we're going to pass. And when I said, yeah, it looks like Microsoft didn't pick them up because the price was too high, people were like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's a $3 trillion company. Like, no, that's not. You listen to the words. The price was too high, not meaning they couldn't afford it. Sometimes you see stuff and it's like me, for example, with the PS5 Pro. It's not that I can't afford it. It's just it's not in the price point I'm willing to part with. Like if it was like $150 difference over me trading in my PS5, or maybe if I like best case if I got 400. and the thing was like 550 or maybe six, okay, they would probably get me for it. It's if it had the disk drive, but having to get the disk drive and it's still going to be like it's going to wind up being $300 difference. That price is too high for me. I can afford it. I'm not going to afford it because I don't see the value in it. Much like some people don't necessarily see the value in Game Pass. Me, on the other hand, I do. But each person has their willingness of what they'll be willing to spend. But Bungie, oh my God, like
Well, they got
hearing the
wrecked with
stories of the
Bungie.
guy inviting the chick over to the house, hey, check out my cars. And I guess since I don't know if she was cut because shortly after a lot of people were cut, and it's like, wait a minute, did he cut? Well, no, he probably couldn't cut her because then it would be like an harassment thing, which he probably
Yeah.
still get a harassment thing over that whole deal. But yeah, it's like when they let people go before they were vested on that money that was given as a bonus to keep or retain talent, and then he's out there buying cars. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let me lay off these people. Oh, we kept the best people. Now,
Yeah.
if you were working with Joe over here and he's your best friend and you know he was busting his butt just as much as you were, and you hear some BS like that in an email, yeah, you're probably writing your resume at the same time at that point to go somewhere else because it's a terrible situation. But people kept on ignoring it. They're like, "Oh, Microsoft is the one that can't manage these studios." Yeah,
Yeah.
tell me more.
It's actually interesting, right? And we could do a whole episode honestly about that. I
Mhm.
honestly forgot about half that stuff. I forgot like he was like hitting her or whatever, like check out my cars, and then like fired her the next day. Like there should be a whole Bungie episode honestly because we could really dive into it. And then Sony with their franchises right now, their studios, um, and them closing so many of them lately. It's like what Roberto Z just said. It was something I was actually thinking of. PlayStation invests in exclusive um, games for a couple months. Compare that to Xbox buying the massive and legendary franchises. Those hats are only good for a month or two. Xbox smart buys the revolving return.
Mhm.
That's that's kind of my mentality. Like Xbox thinks pretty long term. They always have in a lot of their decision making. It goes back to the Xbox One when they tried to make it so players can rent games from each other, but that required it to always be online. And people are like, no, like always online. Like, what do you mean? Like, we don't have devices that are always online. Like that was a like the major backlash at the time amongst their messaging. Their messaging was terrible around that time. But like, I remember that being a major thing, and now we always get always online for a majority of our products, right? Um, but with Sony in particular right now, the way I compare is like Xbox, it can afford to do that, Roberto Z. Like they are a behemoth of a company. They can definitely buy another Activision Blizzard if they want. Um, it just shows you like the kind of comparison. The thing is Sony is just owns the market, but Xbox can keep up in other ways, and they're playing that long term game of like, hey, Sony, we have to as a company, the way they compete, Sony is really relying, especially this year, on third party deals. So
Yeah.
making sure that this game doesn't go to Xbox. So you pay the publisher, and we're starting to see that mentality of publishers. They're like, this is not beneficial. We're starting to see a lot of publishers actually be like, yeah, I don't want to take that deal. Actually, there was one recently. Do you remember who it was? Fuzz? I'm
Pearl
trying to
Abyss.
Pearl Abyss, which
They
I thought
do
was interesting.
what was it? Crimson Desert. They also did Black Desert, but that's like the online MMO. Um, and then like Crimson Desert is I guess their single player version of that kind of deal.
Yeah. Um, that was interesting to me because one to go kind of go out. I don't know if it was a public statement or how they decided to say that. But I don't think they're getting any deals in the future now that that is out there. I'm just saying. But Sony, for years they were known to do that. I know like Xbox occasionally does it, with like Stalker 2, for example. But
Mhm.
that's an interesting case because they really helped out with the developers there, in Ukraine, giving them support and things like that. It's a little different with Stalker
Yeah.
2. And but they'll occasionally have these deals, and the way the media interacts with that is very interesting. Like we could talk about Ryan McCaffrey and his backlash to Tomb Raider, right? And like, oh, this is the worst thing in gaming, and then praising Sony like
Oh,
five.
with Final Fantasy
Yeah, yeah.
7.
Very interesting. Um, but the way that these companies are competing right now is not even comparable in my opinion. But Sony, that's the level that they can compete right now, and the media is not going to call them out for it because of the
Mhm.
fact that they have such a huge player fan base. A lot of people love PlayStation,
Yeah.
and I don't think a lot of people are seeing those cards kind of falling in that place. I think people have such respect and see Sony as the premium brand that they're not really seeing all this stuff, all these studios kind of shutting down the budgets of a lot of these games like Spider-Man 2 getting more and more, and like them, um for example, like what's been happening with like Bungie and them canceling all these games, The Last of Us 2, all this stuff has been happening lately, right? Like it's that kind of just goes out the window, because of the fact that they're Sony premium brand. Um and these third party deals really do cover up quite a bit. But I do wonder long term, if who how that's going to affect them, if at all.
Yeah.
I really do wonder. Like Xbox is in more of a more solid position than Sony in that regard.
Mhm.
They own these studios, right? They don't have
Yeah.
to. They know when these games are coming out. They don't have to pay, Activision Blizzard for a Call of Duty deal. They own Call of Duty now, so they are allowed to make strategic moves, marketing wise, release wise. If they want to promote anything like the new Xbox or something, they could do a Call of Duty Xbox, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, because they own these franchises, and that's the the good thing. But
Yeah.
Sony is in a weird position, in my opinion. So
Yeah. I think at this point, people that are fans of Sony need to just ask the question repeatedly, what's the roadmap look like? Like there's I guess what you can consider some expected or assumed titles. Like, great, we now know what Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to be. It's Ghost of Yotai. Um, but is there, or when can we expect a Last of Us 3? We know that there's got to be something since they didn't release factions, that they got to be working on something along those lines. Hopefully, it's not another remaster. It would be nice if it was a new IP, considering that they're not going to be doing any more of what do you call it? Uh, Nathan Drake. What the heck? Uncharted.
oh
Since they're
yeah,
not
yeah.
doing Uncharted anymore, it'd be nice if they have a new IP to go along with The Last of Us 3. We can only assume that there's going to, at some time soon, hopefully, be a Horizon 3. Because they kind of left it open with the ending of 2 that, something's going to come back to Earth. And yeah, if you've played 2, you already know that what the story's going to entail for 3. But it'd be nice to know when that's going to happen. Is it going to be in this console generation? Is it going to be a cross-gen title for the next generation? That those are some of the things that would be nice to know. I mean, we know Wolverine's coming. From the leak, we thought that there was supposed to be like a Venom expansion and Spider-Man 3 being broken up into like series or like
Yeah,
episodic kind of thing.
yeah. It was Venom and
Um,
then Spider-Man 3 Part 1 and then 3 Part 2.
yeah. But we don't know if the Ratchet and Clank that I think in that leak was stated as canceled is truly canceled. Although with I guess the guy leaving from the head for Wolverine heading over to Perfect Dark and the Initiative. Now the Ratchet and Clank heads are now going to be finishing up Wolverine. So I guess if there was a Ratchet and Clank anything in the works that might be postponed or canceled, or maybe that the cancellation listing was all standing, well then Insomniac is basically the ones kind of carrying this generation. Um,
Yeah.
is is Sony Santa Monica going to do anything other than this upcoming remake or remaster of the first three God of Wars? I mean, I
Mm.
would like to know more than just speculate. Oh, well, there's got to be a GTA or not GTA, a GT 8 instead of them just constantly letting GT7 kind of out there to die. Yeah, they add a couple of cars every other month or so, but there needs to be more
Roadmap. Yeah.
vision or a roadmap to know, like, hey, what am I going to be playing next year? Oh, Ghost of Yotai is coming in 2025. Is that the only title coming in 2025? What about, well, I know MLB, but a lot of the PlayStation guys don't count that since that's multi-plat now, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice if they started asking the questions.
Yeah, I hope so too. Like I just want Sony to get into the mind space again of E3 season, for example, of like that was the year where we could see Sony's plan, like what the heck we're working on, what their vision is as a company. Now it's like their big shows are third party shows with like a sprinkle of maybe their vision. Like this last show, we had Ghost of Ute, I think is how you say it.
Mhm.
Um, but most of that was a third party show, where it used to be like here's God of War, here's Last of Us, here's back in the day. But now it's like goodness gracious, they really are lacking in the first party department. I remember that was a standard for people, and maybe that standard is changing a little bit because a lot of these games are going to PC and things like that now. Maybe that's what people's mindset like. Oh, it's going to PC, so it doesn't count, or I don't know. All I know is like first party for me still matters if especially if you're thinking about investing within that ecosystem. So it matters for me. Like
Mhm.
if I'm looking towards an ecosystem of which one I want to spend more time in because I have all the ecosystems. I look towards a roadmap of like,
Yeah.
okay, that's promising. That means I'll spend more time in this ecosystem. Like, oh, I know this is coming up in the in the future. Or maybe I'll spend a little bit more time in this ecosystem because I know this is coming. So we'll definitely see if that comes to light. It's looking dire out here. So I really hope that they pick it up from my opinion, anyways. Um, Either way, we are eating good this year, regardless. Third party perspective.
Yeah.
Even in Sony's down year, there's still some great games that people could look forward to on both the Xbox and the PlayStation. So, just talking about from a first party perspective.
Yeah.
So, read some of these, and we'll go to our last topic, and we'll head on out of here. So, Taylor Ray said maybe a new IP from Naughty Dog. I do think they're gonna have a new IP. I've heard rumors about a Naughty Dog new IP.
Mhm.
I'm still just annoyed from freaking. I was really looking forward to The Last of Us actions,
Yeah.
and they gave me was a concept art piece, and then they ditched. And it's freaking annoying. Maybe one day it'll come back. If they remaster a game, remaster Bloodborne, I still don't understand. That seems like the easiest thing to not easy thing to remake or remaster, but it seems like yeah, everyone wants that. Like
Yeah.
do it, but I don't know.
No, they'll do GT Sport instead, or
They do
like the
everything.
Sousa
Said
said, they'll do a GT7 Ace spec.
they'll do everything but what people want. The Susan says the Sony brand sells now. Do the games even matter anymore? I mean, 100%. That's something I've been calling out. Like people, it's the brand that's so
Mhm.
powerful to people. Like they can suck and suck with their first party releases. This is a pretty bad year, in my opinion, for them in the first party perspective. There's still some great games that release. Potential game of the year candidate with Astrobot and things like that.
Mhm.
But from what I expect out of PlayStation is not the year. The Sousa says, well, I guess Nintendo's number one, not Sony, but I guess they feel that they don't need to try hard for their hardware to sell. That's how it feels, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. All right, let's get to our last topic. I know some peeps also earlier was saying I'm not old and stuff like that because I was talking about Call of Duty. Um, yeah. I mean, I'm not old, right? I just feel old sometimes when I'm trying to play Call of Duty because that game is definitely like a Twitch shooter. You gotta be like on your like you have to rewire your brain to play Call of Duty. Like it's like you're jumping from like RoboCop, for example, to Call of Duty is a completely different experience.
Mm.
Like you have to pay attention more or yeah, I guess you have to pay attention more. Like you have to like really hone in on your skills if you're trying to be competitive. Like you'd be like, oh, I have to make sure I'm checking my corners. Let me switch my weapons and make sure I'm good. Let me set this. It's just a different mind mentality. My mind's not
Mm.
there yet, but I think if I play a few matches, if anyone wants to play matches with me, I'm down. Just add me i3bit on Xbox and we'll play some games. Maybe you guys can carry me, and then eventually I can get there. So Prince Green says 3-bit. You still in your 20s for or early 30s? I am 29, so I'll be 30 next month. It's gonna be crazy.
Nice.
That's like a life stone, right? That's a life milestone. All right, let's get into Indiana Jones, Fuzzy. So, Indiana Jones, and the Great Circle. So, I'm gonna look at this article from Games Radar. They previewed Indiana Jones. We've had a couple people in our community, Fuzzy and me, we podcast with Mr. Boomstick, a great man in the community. It's the reason why I started podcasting. So shout out to him. He previewed it as well, had a lot of good things to say about it. What seems kind of synonymous with people is that Indiana Jones has a lot of stealth elements in there, um, which I love, by the way. I'm down with that. So, Games Radar says Indiana Jones and the Great Circle feels the most rewarding when you're being stealthy, and it captured my heart with one little reference. And then it kind of goes down and explains like the level that he basically plays through. I'll read a little bit of it because I think it's interesting. It's a dark and stormy night in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and my demo session begins as I make my way through the halls of Marshall College. That's cool that they're doing Marshall College if you watch the movies. Someone has broken in and leaving a trail of muddy footprints and destruction in their wake. Basically, he follows, yada, yada, yada. And he later follows that up by, I can't help but appreciate the level of attention to detail. I feel like I've been transported directly into the location where Indy famously taught a lesson about the burial site. And then he kind of goes into this discussion where he talked to the creative director and who's Marion. Who's like the girl in the trailer. She might pop up on the screen as I'm playing through this. I'm not playing this footage. I wish I was playing. He says we all love Marion. She's a super cool character. It's one of those small things that's very nice and important to add to get the right amount of hints and nod to the existing franchise and the existing content in terms of the movies. We're just trying to find those pieces that we feel are filled with warmth and play on the human aspect of Indiana as a character. When we ask about the decision to reference Marion, he's not this macho guy that's all about just fighting and smashing people over the head. He has a very human side to him as well. And then he continues, he's this academic teacher. He's a nerd. He's obsessed with archaeology and finding out secrets. And obviously, he's very human in the sense that he has emotions and he has love interests. So I think it's part of trying to portray him as this very human, warm character because those are the characteristics that we've chosen to really bring forth that we see in the earlier movies. So just from the preview and quote, by the way, just from the previews I saw from Boomstick and other people, I get that. Like I get that sense that they really watched the movies, studied the movies. When I see like someone punch somebody, it has like that punchy feeling that you see in
Hmm.
like old movies where it's like whoosh, like you can really feel that punch sound.
Hmm.
They clearly watched the movies, and I think it's really an ode and kind of respectful to the character. A lot of people said like, "Hey, this could literally work as like the next entry to that movie. Like it fits
Hmm.
pretty well in between. I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then it fits between like in the timeline between like two different Indiana movies.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm really excited about this game. I think stealth in general is my vibe. I tried to do a lot of stealth in Call of Duty actually. Really fun when it works really well. Like a lot of games, they just give up on stealth. Nowadays, they're
Yeah.
like people don't have the attention span. Let's just speed this up, right?
Hmm.
So it's cool when a game is like, okay, here is the mechanics. You are not like forced to do the mechanics, but like this is intertwined with the character. Like this makes sense for Indiana. It doesn't make sense
Yeah.
for Indiana to be like, all right, let's shoot have some grenades, and I'm gonna get like a battle rifle, and I'm gonna charge up my shields and all this stuff. Right? That doesn't make sense
No.
for his character. So, when I heard that, like, I was like, cool, that I'm on board. Like that sounds like something I was vibing with. I mean, I probably would have played this regardless. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. Um, so yeah, all good things. All good
Yeah.
things. It was a long article. I just tried to summarize the parts I thought were interesting. So Fuzzy, just from that, like was there anything that stood out to you just from things I said, or maybe something you saw from different previews of Indiana Jones that you thought was kind of interesting that piqued your eye or
But
something?
some of the key things I like the first person to third person perspective changes depending on what you're traversing over and stuff like that. I think this is going to feel a lot better than the people that first they were like, oh, first person is going to make me motion sick. It's like I I I don't think this will make people motion sick as much as they claim. I mean, there are some people that do have like a almost like a vertigo issue, I guess,
Hmm.
that may still get a little nauseous, but I think this is going to be a better transition than what a lot of people expect. The stealth aspect, although as long as you have the option to go loud once you get caught, kind of thing, because
Yeah.
that usually winds up happening. It's like I could do the stealth perfect for like one or two areas, and then like the third one where it's like I
You're like, oh,
start
I
getting a
can't screw
little
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm right by the exit. I could just run or dart towards it. And it's like I knock something over, and then everybody's alerted to my position. So as
Yeah.
long as I can go
100%.
loud then or start whipping people, I'll be good. But no, I loved everything as far as like from what I was seeing from people that have gone out there, some of their feedback as far as what they encountered. A lot of them being fans of the indie series and knowing what the movies were like and all, were able to give that feedback that, like you said, the developer really paid attention to the source material. Like it feels like you're playing the movie. Like this could have been one of the movies, or actually maybe a little bit better than some of the more recent ones, but it feels like they took the time to craft a story that may have, been like a continuation of one of the stories or a prequel to one of the stories and make it so that way you're living as Indiana Jones. Like I'm looking forward to this. I'm the only question I have is going to be the feel in hand. Like everything looks and sounds like it's going to be awesome between using the whip, using the pistol, using your fist. Like many games have a hard time with melee combat from first person
Yeah.
perspective, but this one looks like it's going to actually have it down pat. Um, and that's a hard to do thing. Like even Cyberpunk had its issues with first person combat hand to hand. Same thing when you try to do that in like GTA when it came to like the
Oh,
previous, yeah,
yeah.
was it previous gen? Yeah, I think it was previous gen when they went with the first person perspective option and stuff. Yeah, not many games do it right. This one looks like it does it right, and then it's got I guess they call it the Williams scream or something like
Yeah.
that. Like when you knock
Or
people off
however you
the
say
like an
it.
edge or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they have all of that is it. I could see this being a game that you, instead of just playing for like an hour or two and then setting it down and then come back to it, I think this is one that people try to play straight through, like they're actually living their Indiana Jones dream kind of thing. I don't know if I'm gonna be sitting up there with the Indiana Jones hat, but like that, it almost feels like that's a must have to do while playing this, and then just kind of go through the all. I don't know if they're doing it as chapters or whatnot, but I can see this being like more than a 4 hour session. Like, oh, I'll just do one more mission. Well, let me find one more artifact, or find out where these people took this artifact and stuff like that. I could see me spending a lot of time in this game, but it's going to be tough because Stalker 2 is not too far off as well. So
Yep.
I think I'm going to have to play Stalker 2, play it to a certain point, hit Indiana Jones, and then come back to Stalker 2 because I think Stalker 2 is going to be the longer game for me, like I was saying earlier. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to this because it looks like a ton of fun.
Yeah, and just me looking at this footage, I haven't seen it. Some of this footage actually on my stream before. I'm like, what the heck?
Mhm.
They show like Troy Baker doing the mocap and things like that. Yeah, and some peeps on chat they're kind of mentioning like first person melee combat. Like Susa says, first person melee combat is always janky.
Yeah.
Um, I agree with you. Some people can do it right. I'm trying to think of a game that I feel does first person combat pretty well. I think like Chivalry 2 was pretty good, like of how
Yeah.
they do like the the sword hits and things like that. And if we're talking about the history of this developer, I loved Riddick. They did Chronicles of Riddick. Um Honestly, if they do something similar to that, I'll be happy. And you can see like you could see that sort of DNA kind of come through with when he's going up the uh the wall with like his rope, whatever.
Mhm.
Where it does switch to the third person, like that's very much Chronicles Riddick vibes that I get from this game. So it could go either way though. Like it is hard to do like first person melee combat and stuff, but from what
Yeah.
I'm looking at the previews, it seems like they're doing pretty well. Like I think what's hard about first person fist combat is like you have to make it feel impactful without doing too much camera shake, and it makes it feel like responsive all at once. Like it's like a hard thing to do. It's weird because like first
Yeah.
person, you don't have to animate everything behind them and stuff like that, but you run into a different issue when you're actually animating and things like that. But overall, hey, this game looks dope. Um, I'm down to try it out. It's in Game Pass.
Mhm.
Why not? People on PlayStation could play it later. I think what was it in February, something something like
Something like
that.
that.
You guys can
I think
play
it's
play too.
no, it might be May. I think it's May because it's almost like a 6 month thing.
Oh yeah.
So
Um,
they'll have to live vicariously through our postings on Twitter or other social media
yeah.
until it's available for them to purchase on PlayStation. It's like I think if I was I'm being dead honest. If I was a PlayStation only guy, I probably would just get Game Pass to try this game to see what it's like instead of waiting. Like I'm the same guy that bought Deathloop on my PlayStation, so if I was still PlayStation only, I would probably just go ahead get a either a Xbox Series S or play through my PC's browser or through my PC and get Game Pass PC or something like that for the month. Try the game and probably wind up being hooked on not canceling the subscription. But yeah, I wouldn't wait the 6 months. I'd be like, yeah, I want to see how this game plays and not be one of those be like, see, this game sucks. No, I'd be like, hey, this game's actually fun. It's probably worth subscribing or just picking it up on that platform. If you have no interest in picking up that platform, at least do the subscription for the month or however long and go from there. But that's just me.
Yeah. Apparently like a helicopter is coming for me. Indiana Jones or Sony's coming for me. Um, but no, yeah, I agree with you, Fuzzy. I think peeps, if they want to play this, and yeah, go for it on PC. If you have a good PC, like everyone claims they do, like you have that powerful PC, try it out. Series S is probably the cheaper option to do this. And I think they confirmed that this was going to be 60 frames per second on both the Series S
hmm
and X.
Yep.
Um,
Just it'll be 1080, I think, for Series S. So,
yeah.
but
So,
that's good enough. I mean, like I I don't know if I told you last time when I went on one of those Monster Mania things, I took the Series S with us.
mhm.
I, it's a 1080 TV in most of these hotel rooms, if it's 4K, it doesn't really look like it because they have it where it's like over broadband or whatever internet they have, but the games play fine on it. Like I think the only noticeable difference for me is the icons for Forza Horizon 5. Like, I don't understand why they do it, but like when you're in the menus for upgrading your cars, the icons are different. That's the only thing I've noticed, like playing the Series S. Like, yeah, it may not be as crystal clear as it is on my Series X on my OLED, but it's good enough. And I don't really care about the icons. It was just like weird. Like, wait a minute, why do they show? Normally they show the engine a certain way. Now they have it facing the other. It's like I just thought it was weird. But that's yeah. On a Series S, this would be awesome. Still,
Yeah. And Froggy T Wright says you can play Xbox games on your phone or a Chromebook, so no excuses. And then isn't there something happening, I believe this month, where something about Game Pass, like on Androids or something? Like did I
yeah,
hear that some
they're supposed to be doing the Microsoft Store or the Xbox Store on Android.
Oh
They're
yeah, yeah.
still fighting with Apple on that one, but I think
Hmm.
it's
It's
going to
bound to
be,
happen.
yeah, I think Android or Google's already lost their battle and they're getting ready to lose another one in the UK or something like that. So, yeah, Microsoft is now pushing everything forward as far as getting those stores on those devices, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be
Yeah.
interesting to see what Apple's final response is because if it starts taking their gaming revenue, which they've been making money hand over fist with gaming revenue without even doing anything other than providing a store for the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if my long term prediction of somebody like Amazon or Apple buying PlayStation might be the next step.
That would be pretty crazy. I actually thought something similar, like if Sony wants to get a, I in a way I almost wish that happens, not because of my fanboyness or anything like that. I almost wish that happens for the sake of like Spider-Man, because if anyone buys Sony, the Spider-Man rights go back to
Marvel.
Marvel. So
Nice.
they wouldn't have to, that would be very interesting because they always have to fight Sony with the Spider-Man contracts and things like that. So that would be nice if someone else buys them. Just for my selfish reason of like wanting more Spider-Man ness. Yeah, good points. Good point. And I also think last thing I'll say with like Indiana Jones, it was really smart of them to do first person also for the sake of the gaming media. Like
Yeah.
I know that company like Machine Games, they're comfortable, like first person is their thing, like they're very good at making first person games, being the Wolfenstein franchise and Chronicles of Riddick, it's the same team, things like
Mhm.
that. Like first person is their jam, but also like how many comparison videos we probably avoided from being like, this is Indiana Jones, this is Uncharted. Which one is better? Oh, look at Uncharted, it has more grass here, and like, I'm so happy we also avoided that
Yeah.
annoying that annoying comparisons, like the whole Starfield versus um,
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky thing. That
Honestly, it should be Starfield versus Star Citizen, but
yeah, honestly, that's a more honest comparison to what they're both trying to kind of do than freaking No Man's Sky, but I digress. Read some comments and then we're gonna head on out of here. Roberto Z, Pitfall will be the equivalent of Indiana Jones. It would be great for them to make it third person, Uncharted Tomb Raider style. If you never heard of Pitfall, look it up. Old game. Yeah, I know about Pitfall. I might be a youngin, but I know about the pitfalls. Um, I remember my dad used to play Pitfall. Actually, that's probably why I know about it. The Sousa gonna be real soupy on the Series S. Have a S on the resolution sometimes. Oh man, I mean, actually, I do agree. Like certain games, I'm like, ooh, it's a little blurry. And I hate that blurry look. But if the developers always prioritize like frame rate on the Series S, then I can get over. It's like a cheap box. Like I don't mind. Immortals of Avium on Series S is the worst looking game this gen. It looks good on the X. Huge difference with that game. Yeah. I don't know what it is about that game. Me and that game have beef, and I don't know why. It's like this is something about that game, like visually and just the way it played in that tutorial section. I just have beef with that game. I don't know. Maybe if I ever replayed it, it would be a good experience. But I played that game. I'm like, ooh, this is rough. But some people liked it. I got it for like $1, so I can't complain too much. JMac, it's really nice to see the almost $80 billion investment to Game Pass manifest itself with these great games coming. Stalker, to Call of Duty, and Indiana Jones, banger, banger, banger. Yeah, and I hope we get even more next year.
Yeah.
If Fable is next year, if it is, then then I'm looking forward to the environments that I have crafted in that game, and people are going to be really surprised with Fable. That's all I'll say. I'm not even ever. I try not to talk about Fable on these shows, but that's going to be a good one. Fill more pockets. Hand-to-hand combat in FPS games always feel 2D and non-impactful. I notice in Indiana Jones, the character grabs the enemies when he punches. This might help with that problem.
Yeah,
Good
I think it
point.
will.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point, Fillmore. Taylor's Ray says ponies want Xbox games, especially Blade. Yeah, Blade is gonna be interesting. Do you think Blade will be like a time thing, kind of like Indiana Jones, or do you think they'll just go?
I'm I'm going to err on the side of yes. It may be the same 6 months like with Indiana Jones. It might be longer. I think it. Let's put it this way: if it gets the attention that I think it will get, knowing that this is the same Arcane studio that did Deathloop, which I know some people didn't like. I loved it.
Yeah, me too.
Um, um, well, it's also part of the same team that did Prey, although some of Austin did that as well. And then the Dishonored series, this is like the main team for the Dishonored series. I think this game stands a chance by itself to sell as many units as Starfield on
Mm,
just Xbox and PC. I know
mm,
that's a bold claim, but I think it stands to sell that many, not just have 10 million players, sell the same amount as what Starfield did. And if it does, I think Phil can be like, do we really need to put it over there? We
yeah.
got this many subscribers. We sold 10 million copies. We'll see. But I think it does go over there in 6 months to a year. But if Xbox and PC people stand up, like I think they will, maybe it doesn't need to. And they just leave it on Xbox only. And then that'll be like our Spider-Man until Sony is like, you know what? Why don't we put Spider-Man over on on Team Green? I don't foresee that happening
Yeah.
anytime soon. It would make the most sense for their IP to get that licensing money, but we'll see. I think Phil would be like, we trade you Blade for Spider-Man, and you
See
know,
what happens.
I think enough people buy it on Xbox and PC that they don't even need to make that trade. They're like, oh, never mind. But we already put Spider-Man on Xbox. Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. You know what? Like, I'd be really interested if you're correct, because I remember like the fan reaction of Blade of people like oh my gosh, like when they
Mhm.
seen it and they're like, wait, who's making Blade? Xbox? Like what the heck? Um so I do wonder if that would be that game to bring people over. Starfield was a brand new IP. People bought
Mhm.
Starfield because Bethesda.
Yeah.
But Blade is, I wouldn't say it's not as well known as like a Iron Man, right? But it definitely has some fanness to it. It definitely
Mhm.
has some support there. So I'm really curious. We'll see. We'll see. I have no idea. I think you might be onto something though. If it could get those Starfield numbers, that would be crazy. I'm sure Phil is banking on that. A couple more. What's crazy? We've forgotten all about the game Contraband. Yeah. So Xbox has too many games, right? Like in development, like the Wu Tang game. There's just too much.
Contraband. Yeah.
Contraband, friggin' this is too much. And a lot of it is just like under the wraps, and they have so many games in development. They could just be like, like we could hold this for this date, and they could be like more strategic than Sony is right now. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And Poison says you kind of get what you pay for. If I get cheap PC parts, I'm not expecting a performance of middle, top, and line quality. 100%.
Yeah.
Um, Lastly, J Max says the fact that you have so much inside information about Fable and being a content creator must eat you inside. It's definitely challenging when we're talking about certain things and I know what we're talking about. So either I'll just like speak very generally or just opt out completely. And it sucks because Mav always likes to tease me. He'll like mention something he probably knows I'm working on, and then he'll just like look at my face, and I have like a pretty terrible poker face. So it's not always easy being in the podcasting space. Like, so what's going on in Xbox land when I did some stuff in Xbox land? Not always easy. But it's still fun. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. Um, and I'm still excited about a lot of stuff. Brett Bingham, what superhero game, if any, is 100 star making for Xbox? No idea. No idea. Nate Dogg, have you heard anything about Contraband? I have heard some things about Contraband, but I don't know what's like outdated or not. Like I heard this stuff like years ago, so it was just like features in the game, like how it might function and things like that. But I don't know if that's correct. And I don't like being like a leaker. Like my thing on this channel is never to be the leaker, the like oh my gosh, I got a text. Like that's not me. Even though I work in the industry, I never want to be that person. So if you're looking for leaks, it's probably not going to be on this channel. You might get like teases every now and then, but yeah, I'm not gonna be the Jez, the peeps. Like that's not me. Um, Lastly, J Max says I'm believing that Indiana Jones is gonna be bigger than any of us are expecting. This may be the reboot of the franchise. I hope so. That last movie was a little sketchy. It had some good moments, but yeah, I love the franchise. All right, let's get on out of here. Fuzz, tell people where they can find you.
Oh, as always, this is always an awesome time to have. Just shooting the shit with you as far as for games and interacting with the chat. Love that you guys show up for us and interact with us, ask us questions, and throw tomatoes. Although don't throw tomatoes, but yeah, it's all in fun. But for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter, as well as Blue Sky and Instagram and a few others. Just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. Twitter is still fuzzy_Belvedere, but everywhere else it's usually just one word. And then I'll be on Xbox Lunch Break Special Monday, 12 noon. And then hopefully, if 3-bit's not too busy, we'll both be on FSP Monday, but we'll see, because I know he's got some big things that he's working on and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
But always awesome doing podcasts with you, man. Greatly appreciate this. And hey, everybody, just enjoy some games out there, because there's too many of them. But don't let the platforms hear you say that, or don't let Xbox execs hear you say there's too many games.
Yeah, too many games. Appreciate you, Buzz. Everybody in the chat who came on by, always appreciate it. Everyone who sent people our way, like Web Dave and stuff like that. Appreciate, man. He does that almost every Sunday. It means a lot. Especially like we seem to be like growing every few episodes, and we're only on episode 24. But so far, it's been definitely a great journey, and it's been a really fun one. So I appreciate everybody in the chat, from J Mac, even to you, Nate Dogg, even to you, Talos Ray, Poison, Fillmore, everyone who jumped in. I appreciate everybody for coming on by. If you guys agreed with us or not, let us know in the comment section down below. Let's have a chat. We'll talk about it in the next episode. Be like, hey, 3-bit Fuzzy, you guys, you said there's one thing about the teraflops, and it actually wasn't 16.1, it was 16.7. Just let us know. We'll talk about it. So thank you guys so much for coming, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Pixelated Echoes. Bye, y'all.
Later.